Hello everyone, thank you for checking out this video. In this video we're going to cover Azure load balancers, and we're going to cover both the basic and the standard, how to set them up and everything. So let's go ahead and get started in that. First we're going to do, we're going to we already created our virtual network for a load balancer. Basically what a load balancer is basically allows when traffic comes from the internet, it basically distributes that traffic evenly across multiple virtual machines, or if you're using a scaling group, you'll be able to go ahead and have it so that that traffic is being distributed evenly across those across the scaling group. So if you have 1 to 10 instances, traffic will be distributed evenly across all those instead of just having one instance, in this case, one virtual machine being basically being hit with all the traffic, which will be utilizing a lot of resources and cause the machine to possibly fail or die in this case. So what we're going to do, in order to deploy a virtual machine, you need a couple of things. First, you need a virtual network. And in that virtual network, we're going to basically make a new, this is the VN lab that we created in the first video that we did in how to set up a virtual network. We still have this here. So we're going to go ahead and create a new, we're not going to create a new address space, we're going to create a new subnet. And what we're going to do, we got this one called labs. We're going to go ahead and create a new one and call this subnet, I'll just call it LB for load balancer. And I'm going to try to make this one into a basic. And I'm going to basically change the CIDR block, which I'm going to change, well, not the CIDR block, the IP address range. I'm going to set it to .2. And I think everything else is good. So we go ahead and hit save on this one. And this is for the basic load balancer. And we're going to create another one as well for the standard as well. So I'm going to try to kill two birds with one stone doing this here. Let's put stand for standard, and we'll just change the 0 here to a 3, and we'll leave everything else default. All right, because the reason why we're setting up these subnets is because we want to have it so that our load balancer is able to recognize we will make it so that it's able to recognize, we basically want to have it so we did basically distribute it, make sure that a load balancer is basically belongs, basically, this is basically helping me being able to manage which IP address set is the load balancers on, and it also helps with proper management of them. At least if you're going to be creating an environment using basic and standard, you at least want to have IP addresses set aside for that. Two subnets set aside for that because it's easier to manage and stuff like that. But all right, so we're going to do, in this case, we're going to deploy our virtual machines here into the lab, and we're going to basically create two. Well, we're not going to create two at the moment, but we can go ahead and create our basic load balancer, and then we're going to come back and we're going to create our standard. We're going to show the difference between the two. Of course, cost differences is the main difference, but we're going to go ahead and cover that shortly. And I'm going to probably make this into a two separate videos. So let me go ahead and actually, I might make this in two separate videos and show the differences between the two. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to create our load balancers. We're going to create our virtual machines afterwards. All right, so we're going to create our load balancers. It don't matter the process of how you do it. It just, everything's going to come out the same in the end anyway. So let's go ahead and create a load balancer. And what we're going to do, we're going to set it to our DAM demo. And what happens is it automatically went ahead and took the availability zone of our region that our resource group is basically in. So we're going to change the SKU to the basic. We're going to name this LB dash, call it basic test. So it's our load balancer basic, and it's our test. All right, so you could choose the types between internal and public. We're going to make this one public. In our front end, we could go ahead and we could just basically, and our front end IP is basically the IP that's going to be that's going to be used to bring traffic in to the load balancer. So we're going to go ahead and create a front end IP. We're going to name this. I'm going to name this. Okay, FE. I'll put basic.ip. We don't have one in this subnet, so we don't have one created. So we're going to go ahead and create one, and we're going to name it. I just call it front end. Go to basic IP. Actually, it's actually going to be basically BA. Okay, I'm going to name this one IP. It's probably conflict, but we're going to name this one front end basic LB, so we know that this is the front end. This is the front end IP address for the basic load balancer. We're going to click add, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll click backend pools. We have nothing ready in the backend pool yet, so we haven't created our virtual machines yet, but we can ready to do that shortly. So we'll hit click next. This is where you set up your inbound rules for your load balancer. Next, next, and next, and then we go ahead and review and create. And we go ahead and create our load balancer. In some cases, depending on how Azure feels at the time, it should not take that long to deploy a load balancer, but like I said, it depends on how Azure feels. So in this case, it actually deployed it pretty quickly. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and create our virtual machine. And we're going to create two. All right, we already went over this before in a previous video. If you don't know how to set up a virtual machine, you just please take a look at video 2 in this tutorial series, because this is video 3. So it shows you how to set up a virtual machine in Azure. So we're going to set up VM test VM. We're going to call it. This is going to be a Linux instance, so I'm going to call it Lin. In this case, in the last video, I did a Red Hat. This time I'm going to do CentOS. Let me make sure that this is that's the standard type that I want. $9 a month, not bad. And we're going to use an existing key, and we're going to use the one that we've used in the previous video. We're going to leave port SSH, and we'll leave port 80 open at this time. You want to leave them open to the world. It doesn't matter. Disks. Remember always to go ahead and change this to basic to standard. Let's go ahead and make sure. Go ahead and click next, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this. Actually, automatically defaulted to our lab, which that's what we want. So that's fine. We're going to leave a public IP address for now for testing purposes, and continue to move on to the next one. Let me go back real quick. We can go ahead and set up the load balancer here. Set up the load balancer. You just check here and select an existing load balancer, which you see is our basic test load balancer. But we're going to set everything up by hand inside the load balancer. So we're not going to do this right now. So I'm going to leave this unchecked. All right. So go to management. Go to disabled. I'm disabling monitoring right now. And advanced. Now this is one thing we have not gone over in the previous video, and this is going over bootstrap scripts. And what we're going to do in this bootstrap script, we're going to have it so that this instance basically deploys a application software called Apache, so that we can basically have a web server to test with. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and create our bash script right now. And we're going to go ahead, our bootstrap script, and we're going to start off with, and I should have just did one before the video, but I'm doing these videos completely off the top of my head, so please forgive me because you can basically follow along with me. So we're going to open up with this bash script right here, basically using bin bash, and this tells the compiler, yes, we're using bash script. So we're going to go ahead and update our Linux OS using yum-y update, and we're going to go ahead and use yum-y install httpd So that basically means HTTPD means that we're installing Apache. What we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and touch, and we're going to do var, I think it's www, HTML dot index dot HTML. And what this is doing, this is to basically creating a file called index.html in the var www HTML directory. Because when Apache gets installed, it's going to create a www directory, a www and a HTML directory inside the var directory. All right, so we're going to create a file there, and what the index file does, that's basically your website, pretty much. That's what Apache is going to be looking at. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do a echo, and we're going to have it echo out a command to us. So we're going to echo out hello world. This is machine, but this is unit, and I'm just basically leave a space right there. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna forward that information into our file right here, into our index.html file. Now, reason why, and what this does is, what echo does is basically just outputs an item. It just outputs what you entered. So if I did not have this here, this forward this information into this file, what will happen is echo will just go ahead and output this in the command line, and it doesn't do anything. But this is information that we need so that when our website uploads, we'll be able to go ahead and basically be able to view the we'll be able to see that this is on. We basically, let me rephrase. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm speaking off the top of my head. I didn't practice this beforehand. So pretty much what's going to happen is when the website comes up, basically it's going to display this hello world. This is unit. So, and we'll go over shortly what the unit's going to be. So that basically is forwarding this information into the index.html file. I hope I explained that correctly. If I did not, please just leave everything in the comments. I'm going to try to leave comments open so people could, correct me on some things that I'm explaining. Also, then what we're going to do, I want to get the host name. And what I mean this, I'm getting the host name. So, because what I'm doing is this is unit, whatever. That put that space there because I'm getting ready to add the unit. I'm trying to get the host name of the instance, and I want to forward that information into our var, into our index.html file. And what host name does basically just tells the server, hey, what is your host name? That's pretty much what it is. So we're going to do crown, and what crown is going to do, we basically need to make Apache the owner of all the contents in that HTML directory, because usually in this case I'm not sure what the Bootstrap script does when it's installing. I'm not sure if it's making the owner root or whatever. So I'm just basically taking extra precaution by going ahead and saying crown -r, a capital R for recursive, and we're going to do Apache, which is the username, and Apache, which is the group that Apache belongs to. And we want to basically, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this, and I'm going to have it be the owner of all the documents inside of HTML, inside the HTML directory. And that's what that star does. It basically gives Apache permissions to all files inside the HTML directory, which that is what we wanted. All right. So next thing, now we want to go ahead and do a system control. Start HTTPD, because every time on CentOS machines, for some reason Apache does not automatically start itself. For some reason, I don't know. So we had to basically start it. And once we start it, we want to basically make sure that we basically have it so it turns back on automatically if it's rebooted. So that's what the system control enable does. So basically, once it's started, we're gonna create a link there. We're gonna enable Apache so that every time the computer restarts, uh, this machine, every time the computer restarts, the VM restarts, it's going to uh, it's going to basically it's going to start up Apache in this case. All right. All right, and the last thing I think, CentOS. I don't remember if it's CentOS or Ubuntu. One of them have firewall issues with uh with uh with port 80, and we need to have port 80 open not only just on the security group, network security group, but we need to have it also open within Linux and within CentOS or Red Hat itself. So we're gonna do well CentOS and Red Hat. So we're just do a firewall. I think it's firewall CMD and I think it's firewall CMD. If it doesn't work, it will what we'll do Azure will run this script, and if this firewall CMD is not the right command, it will basically cancel out, and but everything else from up top before will be applied. I will if it's the firewall is not applied, then I know that's not the right command. So let's go to permanent. I think we gotta set this to permanent. I think it's permanent zone equals public. And I think I need it. Oh yeah, service add. So dash dash add dash service. I think it's equal HTTP. So I believe that's the command CMD firewall CMD dash dash permanent dash dash zone because you want to make sure that this is in the public, going out to the public, and we need to make sure that the service that's going to be used for it is HTTP. And if you want to, for those of you guys that are saying, okay, but my web server doesn't use HTTP, we just basically just make another line, put the same thing, and this kind of time put HTTPS. So you got to do. And then for CentOS and Red Hat, normally you got to reload the firewall. So we're going to have to do firewall CMD reload. And I think that's right. I think it is a firewall CMD. I'm 92% sure. So, but yeah, we'll go. But yeah, let me go ahead and we'll go ahead and review this. I think that's correct. I think everything is right. So pretty much, we went over everything of how to set this Bootstrap script up. So what we're going to do, we're going to click next. I believe everything is fine. We're going to cross our fingers on that, and we'll hit review and create. All right, so Azure loved it. So it liked it. So basically, this is our Azure we passed validation. So then we go ahead and you can create. We can go ahead if you want to. I think I said this in the previous video. You could download this right here to basically uh, go into to download the automation script to figure out how to set this up through automated purposes. But we're not going to do that in this video. We're just going to go ahead and click create. Or you could, oh yeah, also you could scroll down and get like all the matrices and everything. Uh, all the summary of everything. Please check that. But I'm not going to do that in this video. I did it in the previous. I'm going to hit create because it passed the validation test anyway, so we don't really need to do too much. All right, so just like in the previous video, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pause this until it finishes deploying. And then what we're going to do, we're going to wrap up, and then we're going to go ahead and start the second part of the video. All right. All right, so it just finished deploying. And let's go ahead and take a look at our instance. Once again, I like going into the resource group first. and we see that we have everything regarding our Linux instance here, and all the resources that are going to be connecting to it. And what we could do, we could go to right here to the virtual machine, click on it, and if everything's finished deploying the way it should be, we go ahead and click on our public IP address here, go into your browser, and hit paste and go. If it's not, if and there we go. You see that we got hello world. This is unit VM test lin, and that is our virtual machine here. So it looks like everything's ran correctly. So what we're going to do, we're going to start connecting this to our load balancer shortly in the next video. All right, I'll talk to you then.